on YouTube and Facebook. So, yeah, there you go. All right, coming up, if you're watching an archive version, you might want to fast forward, I don't know, about 4 minutes. All right. Watching Daily Chaos. Coming up in 2.5 minutes. Jeremy Poole in Barcelona and Mark Conway in the UK. And you know what? We're not just going to be all miserable about this thing. Yeah, right, we're going to have a few laughs too. Fine. Blitz Spirit. Now hold on a sec. David Laddie over on Facebook in the comments has just put in a comment, Brexit talks cancelled. David, send me a link please. I want to look at that. Share the thing. People share the, blimey, I don't know. Hey folks, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are on this virus-stricken planet. Oh yeah, what a state. Yeah, Daily Chaos, Olly Connelly here, with Jeremy Poole in Barcelona. We're going to be comparing notes about quarantine. Mark Conway in the UK, he's going to tell us about, I don't know, some unfortunate social stuff, yeah? It's a bit of laugh and a bit of cry today, quite frankly. We ain't half in a pickle. The Viscount might be joining us. I've got no idea. Streaming on YouTube and Facebook. Right, okay, so a bit of news going on today is basically that things are getting, steadily worse everywhere apart from in China, where apparently it's looking pretty good. Fingers crossed. I've got Jeremy Poole here, and we're going to look at some of the news going on, but I want to find out, because you can find out the news pretty much anywhere. It might be fake, mainstream or alternative. It's very hard to know what is and isn't true these days. But I want to find out, and this show wants to find out what is going on in the lives of ordinary, regular people around the world. We had Chris Boozy on yesterday from California, telling us about the state of emergency over there and how that is beginning to be rolled out. Since speaking to him, things have got even a bit tighter in certain cities, such as San Francisco, where they're kind of on a lockdown, a little bit like me in Valencia in Spain, or Jeremy Poole, my guest right now in Barcelona, completely holed up. Jeremy, good afternoon, good evening, good morning.
Good afternoon over here. Good afternoon, Ollie. Always great to be with you, because it makes me smile and we can have some fun.
Oh,
even
mate,
though we're
I'll tell you.
locked up at the government curfew.
Oh, we need it. We need it. Yeah, yeah. So you're, what was it? Art Bell on Coast to Coast used to say, hold up in your underground bunker
I am.
in a village outside Barcelona. Give us an idea of where you are, sir, and what your situation is.
It's quite a rural area, but an hour north of Barcelona. So I'm not... The lockdown out here, there are police in the streets, but I live right on the mountain, so... When on the way to get food, I took a long run, and just because exercise is important. And I've been wandering around the town with my food trolley, just looking at things. But some nasty looks. People are self-policing at the moment, because most believe the shit that's been pumped, the propaganda shit. But yeah, it's okay up here. We're locked in. We're not allowed to go to work, which is shitty. I got the kids upstairs not knowing what to do, and it's going to last, I think, at least 3 weeks here. Can't see it lasting that long. Can't see the government holding out for that long, because people are going to get heads blown off in houses with kids for 3 weeks without not being allowed to go outside the front door.
The deal that we've got in Spain legally at the moment, for anybody wandering outside, because, I mean, it just happened in France yesterday, and I think it's a similar kind of deal there. Here, what has happened is that there was a state of alarm was placed on Friday, which basically gave the central government control over all the regional governments, and so that they could call the shots exclusively without having to haggle and have all the sort of confusion that actually we're seeing in the United States with the more decentralized system there. And so Trump can't control necessarily what all the states are wanting to do. And so it's a little bit not joined up. To prevent that problem in Spain, what they did was they took control of the entire country under the government, but only for 2 weeks, because it's a kind of a check balance off the back of the Franco years. Are a little bit concerned about democracy in this country. It's all very, very sensitive. And so the central government doesn't have too much control allowed for them. So they have a 2-week period. Now, as I understand it, Jeremy, they can then extend that as they need to. But what does it actually, and they could extend it for months, potentially, I mean, depending on how this thing pans out. But what does it actually mean? What does quarantine mean in Spain? You mentioned that you were walking around the town. That doesn't sound like quarantine.
Yeah, but perhaps it's because I can't sit in the house anyway. But I had to take my trolley with me to pretend I was going shopping. there are police looking, and outside the shops, they're allowed in, one out, and all this nonsense. And people with masks on all over the place. I had to put the gloves on when I went in the shop. And there's nobody in the streets.
So you were being naughty. You were breaking kind of curfew, effectively.
No. I was taking the long route to get my shop in.
Okay.
I didn't dare break any laws. Ollie, I don't know what you're suggesting.
No. I do not intend to incriminate you, sir. I had a similar thing earlier. I went shopping. I didn't need to go shopping. And I don't need any loo paper. I've got a few rolls. I've not got loads yet. I've got a few. But I needed to get out. Because I don't know about you, Jeremy, but I was beginning to go just a little bit stir crazy without getting my daily walk in.
Yeah, this is the second day. Well, the fourth day.
It's the second day. That's all it is.
Really started on Friday.
I took the long way round from my flat to get to the supermarket, which is the only place I'm allowed to go to. The supermarket, pretty much, unless I need to go to the doctor or something like that. And I took the long way round, and lo and behold, there was a police car. There was a squad car. And he looked at me. I was walking along, and I wasn't in a place that was so obvious to be going to the shops. And so he pulled out in his squad car in front of me and wound the window down. And I just pulled out my shopping bag and I said, "Me voy a consum. I'm going to consume the supermarket." And he gave me a bit of a grim look and nodded, and it was all right. I could walk on. But the police, they do seem to be on top of the quarantine, is my point. You've just got nasty looks from the neighbours.
Yes. The people around are sort of, they seem to be controlling everything. But I sort of split in it today with my mother-in-law, who came here, and she said, "I've just seen a doctor on TV saying what you say, that it's the flu has killed a lot more people." And so perhaps this beginning, after 2 days of pure staying at home, perhaps things have started to break a little. I can't see it lasting much more than 2 weeks, unless there are hundreds of thousands of deaths. A little story. My wife had to go to a hospital today to have some stitches removed, nothing big. And she had to go, and she went to the hospital, and she waited outside, and they let her go in quickly, give her gloves and disinfected her. And she said she went in, and the longest thing she had to wait for was a group of nurses chatting, and didn't see her coming in because there was nobody. The hospitals were completely empty.
Really?
Nobody in the hospitals at all.
Wow, that is very positive. That sounds...
Yeah, but there's no coronavirus in our area. But yet they've closed all the hospitals down. So you've got empty hospitals with people, the waiting list getting longer, and people having to wait outside the hospitals, get sent in, quick, do what you got to do and out. It might be positive, but there's
no cases. There. No cases whatsoever in your area.
I do not know of any, but in the hospital, my wife was allowed in and out, and there was, if there's such, when they showed us things of Italy, you had stretchers on everywhere in the hospitals, people. I wonder how true that was. You go into the hospital in Bick, the town near us, and I don't know if there is any, to be honest. I haven't heard of one thing.
How far from Barcelona are you?
60 kilometres, 40, 50 miles north.
And is it quite countrified then? How many people live in your village? Or town?
12,000.
Right.
It's a fair-sized village. But the thing is, I can go to the shops, I can go out to my door, turn left. It's pedestrian all the way to the shops. So there's no cars, nothing. I can go right, and I'm on the mountain. So, it's no, I don't have to get involved with any police or anything.
Where I am, in Valencia, there is quite a lot of coronavirus. Let me just give you a bit of an idea of the figures in Spain as of today.
Yeah.
11,300 infections. Compare that to China, where there have been 80,000 infections. 1,000 people have recovered, and there have been 500 deaths in Spain.
500 now. Seems very high from 11,000.
510 dead. 11,000 have caught this thing. But compare it to road deaths or flu deaths or what have you. But you said you didn't see that this thing would carry on for longer than a couple of weeks. I wonder. I would have thought that the problem is if they stop the quarantine too early, before it really is stamped out, we're going to have a double hump, and that is going to cause a bigger problem down the road. They've closed pretty much all the flights off, haven't they? The country has got the border with France closed, border with Portugal closed. And by the way, if you're in the UK, for example, this is what you can expect. I mean, it's pretty much there anyway. Today they said don't fly anywhere. If you're wanting to fly, don't. The next thing they'll do is they'll close the airports, they'll close the ports and all the rest of it, and they will put you in quarantine. It's just a question of when. And we've seen the kind of the. It's like, I don't know, Jeremy, what do you think? It's been, to me, it seems as though it's been a drip feed effect that's been coming from a sort of a hypodermic needle effect. Little bit more, just warming you up until we've kind of got this soft martial law, effectively.
It is martial law now. I don't know about
well,
soft,
there aren't any troops on the streets, and so technically...
Armed police.
Yes, armed police.
Armed police. I don't see much difference. Police with guns. Hello, Viscount.
Oh, there's a good Welsh voice. I like that.
From the Valley, Seaman, but...
God bless you. Oh, hold on a sec. I can't see either of you guys. Why can't I see you two? We should
I'm
be
here.
able to... Why can I not see you?
Well, Mr. Poole, very good to make your acquaintance. And I always love the sound of the valleys.
Good for you. Good for you. My accent now is a little bit softer because I've been away from the valleys for almost 20 years, I suppose now. Still there, though. Still there.
I was away from Belgravia for 12 weeks due to different causes, or 6 weeks is what I served, and then a year on license. There we go. No.
You haven't come down with this yet, Viscount. We were just discussing the deal in Spain and what's going on here. Just bring us up to speed with what happened, particularly yesterday, I think, the announcement that was made, and any changes on that. Give us bring us up to speed with what's going on in the UK for folks, for example, stateside or in Australia or what have you.
Okay, well, I'll take a step back very briefly. I was actually tested for corona. As you know, I'm coming off the booze, and they did a blood test. My white blood cell count was through the roof, as you would expect. So I was chucked into A&E, Chelsea and Westminster Hospital, and they are absolutely overrun with people who are sort of coming in, wanting to be checked up, etc., etc. And basically, you end up with a swab and a mobile X-ray kit. So I was propped up in bed. X-ray kit turns up, and I thought, okay, this is astonishing. I was given a tuna and mayonnaise sandwich, and then sent back home. The staff in the NHS are absolutely superb. Absolutely no two ways about it. In my view, in terms of the shutdowns, I can understand why in actual fact people are closing borders. If you look at the number of beds that are available, either on the NHS or in France or in Germany or wherever it happens to be, Switzerland, for normal things, I don't know, cancer, diabetes, blah, blah, blah. The shutdown across borders, we cannot cope. The infrastructure across national borders cannot cope with the influx of a pandemic. And that is what is to be expected.
Yeah.
And that is why, Australia doesn't want people, Switzerland doesn't want people, Germany doesn't want people crossing borders. America has even stopped travel from the UK. We were given a special get out of jail free ticket after Donald Trump said 26 out of the EU members can't travel.
Yeah, but you know what? That was very political, wasn't it? I mean, he basically was wanting to put the boot in on the EU, and full marks, Mr. President.
And do you know
Full
what?
marks for that.
Top score.
But-
absolutely ball in the back of the net.
But yeah, it
that-
really was. You know, travel ban to the EU, but the UK, yeah, you can keep coming. I thought it was beautiful. But from a political point of view, partisan point of view, yeah. But on the other hand, it was a cynical thing to do, really, because the UK is just as riven, or at least it's on the same trajectory.
Do you know what? Well, hang on. I wouldn't say it was cynical, Ollie. I would say, in actual fact, it's the hand. It's a gesture of friendship from America. We're going to tell 26 member states.
This is not a time
of the EU.
This is a time for pragmatism.
It's now is a time, in actual fact, for your pragmatism. So don't use words like cynicism. Donald Trump actually said we won't have 26 countries from the EU allowed to travel to our shores, but we will have the UK and Ireland.
Okay, right.
And now, okay, and hang on a sec. Within 48 hours, okay, we were then excluded. But there was a system of preference, which, in actual fact, when it comes to the trade deals, etc., America has demonstrated that we do still have that special relationship, which is a completely separate topic.
Right, it is. And Rodders, look, hold that thought, because we've only got Jeremy here for about 15, 20 minutes, or if I can coax him, then maybe...
Brains beer, bloody hell, I haven't had one of those for years. I
want to ask you a few questions, and I will come back to you and ask you a little bit more. And by the way, I'm very glad to hear, you do sound a bit throaty, but I'm glad to hear that you're basically still in the land of the living. Now,
well, I'm from Wales. Bloody hell, St. David's. Yes. Oh, you don't expect me to go in a hurry.
I come St. David's, of course. One more.
So, Jeremy, mate, you're having it dull. You're basically having to stay inside with the wife and kids playing Scrabble or whatever you're doing, and bingo with the neighbours, and you haven't even got any Corona whatnot there.
No, there's nothing. There's nothing within about, I don't think, 40 kilometres. But they've closed everything, including work, which is a pain in the arse then, because you know we all need money. If you can't work, you can't get an income. Yeah, really not doing that.
So, what are you going to do? What do you have any idea of what income you're going to lose and what you're going to do to replace that, if you can?
Well, I can't do anything to replace it because I can't get out. I've been trying to contact my students, see if I can do anything online or give, but nothing. There's nothing. Nobody wants to do anything. Nobody, you know, for me, on a one-to-one basis, I don't see any problems with being in the same room as anybody. There's nothing, as I say, within 40 kilometres. But they're all so scared of the armed police and the law. You know, as you said, we're coming off the back.
Jeremy, can I very quickly ask, what do you do?
As everybody does over here, I teach English.
You do?
I bloody well do.
Not Welsh.
Well, I tell you what, I can see you've stocked up because in the corner, I can see an extra 53 Yorkshire tea box. That's right. So you're stocking up, you're stockpiling already.
That's an empty box. That's there for a reason, a very specific reason.
Tell us the reason. Go on.
Well, because it's racist. Yorkshire tea is racist. Because when it was Boris Johnson, I think, was seen with Yorkshire tea, so that was it. The left went crazy and saying Yorkshire tea is terrible. I thought, well, I got piles of it out here. After my mother comes over, she brings piles of Yorkshire tea for me. So,
well, do you know what? There's a new business for Wales, which is Welsh tea. Let's grow tea in the Rhondda Valley.
Now the temperatures are getting better there.
Yeah, Pembrokeshire. Oh, ferocious.
Right. Now, Jeremy, I want to ask you, because whilst you personally are frustrated there, and that is a concern, you clearly are wanting to get out of a quarantine situation sooner rather than later. Out of interest, I don't want to, it's none of our business about your financial affairs and what have you, but I'm kind of curious, how long could you survive in this situation? Because there is talk that we could be in this situation for another 3 to 4 months.
A month. I'd be really pushing it after a month. I'd really be pushing it after a month, because I came over here and you had the big collapse in the house prices, and it's taken a long time for me to recover from that, because I bought a house then to reform, and it's taken a long time to recover from that. And now I'm starting to get back on my feet. Boom, this now is knocking me, but we do what we can. Hopefully, they'll sort of make it softer after a couple of weeks, and we'll be allowed to go out and do something. But yeah, it's killing me.
It's interesting. The advice that I was given was to self-isolate for 14 bloody days. My child is coming home from school, and the advice from the school is don't return until July. I mean, it's got very much out of hand. And how much of this is due to the media? The reality is the bug on a segmental basis, or the virus, I should say, on a segmental basis, is basically killing people over the age of 60. That's the biggest target group. And if you think that it was the Italian, I think it's the Italian health minister, age 67, has succumbed, he's popped his clogs, to the coronavirus.
Who has?
The Italian health minister.
Really? What? He's died?
He's died. He's they're burying him, I think, today.
I haven't heard that. I know that there have been about 2,000 deaths plus in Italy. In fact, I can tell you exactly. But 2,500 now.
But do you know what? When you actually look on a segmental basis, when the virus is unleashed, the people who are badly hit by it are those who are on a dense population above the age of 60. And if you look at the Spanish demographic and you look at the Italian demographic, old people tend to live together because they get on well. It's a community spirit. If you had the same virus, and Olly, we discussed this last week. If the virus gets out into the communities, the gated communities of Florida, which are the retirement homes, all of a sudden you'll find the fatality rate goes through the bloody roof, because that's what it attacks. Funny enough, there are only a handful of children who have succumbed, and a very close colleague of mine, his grandson is going through leukemia, and he's age 5. So he's had chemotherapy. He's had, his immunology is in the dumps. It's those children who are at risk.
We're going to have Mark Conway coming on in
good old Mark,
20 minutes or so, and he's got a story about this from his own family, and so we'll come back to that. We'll come back to that.
Okay,
Jeremy, I know that you have something to teach us and to inform me about.
English, preferably.
Yes, in English. And you can, sort out my English too. Event 201. I know you know something about it. You did a show about it the other night on Wake Up UK. Can you please educate the Viscount and me about Event 201, what it is?
Yeah, well, Event 201, that was... all I can say is a role play, a sort of test, an idea to show people what would happen if there was a different scenarios. And the scenario they did I've actually got it written down here. I was talking about it earlier. The scenario they wrote in October 2019. The Bill and Melinda Gates is part of this. I'll find the web page now, because I was.
They got a foundation, haven't they?
Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation that set all this up, and they I can find a piece, and they set this up in this role play in October 2019, and
like swinging.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing. No, but they were actually, the event was looking at what would happen in the event of a global high-level pandemic of coronavirus, and how they would deal with it, what they would have to do. And this is not conspiracy theory, and I think this is what they actually did.
Jeremy, you're spot on, because I saw the speech earlier today that you're referring to. And yeah. Sorry, I'm with you 100%.
Yeah. Well, if you look on the site is Centre for Health Security.org, event 201. Just put event 201 into any search engine, it'll come up. And take a look at the videos. There's 6 videos on it that go through the day. It was a day long. It's a board game, basically. And what they say we need to do. And then you've got their recommendations. And it is so close. It's like they did this, and then 6 weeks later, the coronavirus was unleashed accidentally by some rat in a market in Wuhan, China, next to the P4 factory.
They didn't mention Wuhan.
No, they didn't. No, but the outbreak was in Brazil, in a market, a meat market with all live animals. That's how they started. And this one started in a meat market with live animals, just happened to be in China next to this Wuhan place. Yeah. It just seems too obvious. Whether they try...
It has to be said that in the media, there has been talk for years, I think pretty much for all of my life, of the concern of there being a repeat of the Spanish flu, or the so-called Spanish flu, which I don't think even started in Spain. I don't know if that's propaganda or what, but which was 1918. I think that.
Yeah.
So in fairness, this could be a coincidence, Jeremy.
Well, hang on a sec. You can
hold on.
Talk
Go
about
on. One sec, Rodders. Jeremy, I want to hear what you have to say about that, because.
Yeah, is there such a thing as coincidence, really, when we start looking at things deeper? I suppose.
Is there any such thing as coincidence?
I don't know whether there is. Every time I find something, is it a coincidence that I find something behind it and think, well, perhaps it wasn't such a coincidence that happened?
Well. Do you know what? If we talk about the plague of locusts, was that a coincidence, or were they all specially bred to go and create a massive famine across the Middle East? If we look at the bubonic plague, were they specially bred rats to run around and give us the Black Death? But I think the reality is it's nature taking its course. And I'm going to say something slightly outrageous.
Go on, as if you would.
And, well, I will. In actual fact, nature has a balancing effect. And if we look at the Spanish flu, for example, it wiped out 60 million people at a minimum, which is more than the First and the Second World War taken together. And every so often, we show our human frailty, and it's about time, frankly, that we do have a little bit of a clear out. I mean, it
tends to be the wrong people. It tends to be the wrong people. I'm not going to name names because I think, but I mean, one or two war criminals. They always seem to get off quite lightly, don't they? In their underground bunkers, probably now or something. I don't know. Go on.
Do you know if it was sectional, you'd want most of it to fall across the House of Commons, a big part across the House of Lords.
The last Parliament, maybe.
I don't mind half of Germany being wiped out, and
now. Blimey.
Okay, all right. These are personal views. I said it was going to be a slightly outrageous statement.
Yeah, okay.
And anyone who voted Remain, frankly, and Gina Miller is the top of my list.
No. Oh no, we're going to get banned. Right, I'm going to take a few comments. Sam Phipps, I think it's a huge cover for something else, much bigger. We are being isolated for a reason, but not the virus. I want to ask you, gentlemen, about that. I want you to hold on to that thought. Amanda Rolfson says swine flu was a killer. Too many more were ill and died of pneumonia. Stephen Tannis Pullen says she loves doggies. David Laddie, if he coughs, he's going out the door sharpish. Don't know who he's referring to. But it could be the Viscount. Amanda Rolfson says, I don't know, she's in a chat with somebody else. Stephen Tannis Pullen, we have never in peacetime faced an economic fight like this one. Hold on to that thought, gentlemen. Want to talk to you about that as well, because I mean the markets are tanking, and where does that leave anything? It just how do you bail out entire industries? That Branson won $7.5 billion whilst he's swanning about on his immunity-proof, whatever, corona-proof Necker Island. He won $7.5 billion. What about the publicans in the UK who are going to lose? Anyway, right, enough of a rant. Ian Wisbit says, I work for a big firm as a driver. I do 11,000 miles in 9 weeks, and they put me on stat. David Laddie says they won't shut the pubs because they will have to compensate the same with salons, etc. My Witherspoons, Tim Martin, God bless you, mate, is chock-a-block today. Really, your Wetherspoons pub is chock-a-block today. I'll tell you, they shouldn't be congregating like that. And particularly not in a Wetherspoons, because as much as I love the boss, good old Brexiteer Tim Martin, I'm sorry, but your beer is not that good. Right.
I'm just going to turn the light on. Hang on a sec.
Okay. Jeremy, it is true, is it not? I mean, we learned in 2008 that we were all this bailing out the banks. We gave them all that money, most of which we never got back, the taxpayer.
No, we have actually. Sorry. No, stop the round.
Viscount, hold on, please. The Federal Reserve was bailing out Deutsche Bank, for crying out loud, which isn't even an American bank, and they haven't got most of the money back. Deutsche Bank, for crying out loud, is bankrupt anyway in reality, with an
That's
exposure.
Not the same as
Let me
RBS.
finish. Do not talk over me, and I will not talk over you. The Deutsche Bank has an exposure of about 2/3 of the global GDP. I mean, that is how legs akimbo that bank is. Now, I'm just saying, in 2008, they could have, with the bailout that they gave to the banks, they could have paid off every mortgage in the United States, for example, with the money that was given from the Fed. Just as an example, yeah. Now, I'm just wondering if this time round, when Branson, who's worth about, I don't know, 12 billion, I think, is the last
well, 2
estimate.
and 6 in reality. But
He's a billionaire. When he's putting his hand out saying he wants $7.5 billion, I cannot see that people are going to put up with that when they are about to lose their house. Now, Jeremy, please, I'd like Jeremy to answer this, please, because I know he's going to.
Well, one of my backgrounds, as you might not realise, but is economy, and there's two ways to fund this, isn't there? One is printing money and causing inflation, or there's debt, and who is going to gain? You have to look who gains from the situation. And
the Fed just printed $1.5 trillion.
Ollie, I want to hear Jeremy. Don't talk over him.
Well, Jeremy, please.
You cannot print money because money is nothing. It's a tool to gain wealth. Wealth is not money. So you print money, you don't gain wealth. You might gain a very short-term step forward, but in the long term, you'll just create inflation. And if you take money from the banks to give to the people, the banks will want it back with interest. And all of these things, who gains? They're not going to create massive inflation. I'm sure of that. Well, I could be very wrong. We could be going into a massive inflationary period, which could cause its problems in itself. But more debt from the banks to us so that they can earn money for nothing. That's what it looks like to me, that there will be certain centralized bank systems, like the Federal Reserve, the private company there, that will be making billions and billions off this. And when you look at who you have to look at who aims to gain from this. And it seems to me the banking system aims to gain a hell of a lot if they can fund it with debt, and they can gain the interest.
Rodri, what are your thoughts on this?
I don't. You caught me on the spot. I don't agree necessarily with that analysis. Quantitative easing, it can be inflationary, but when in actual fact the major problem from an economist point of view, is that 2007, 2008, we haven't recovered from in reality. And it was based largely on the stupidity and apathy of the regulators, because it was a function of liquidity. I gave the example the other day, Ollie, of the Queen taking £100 million mortgage on Buckingham Palace. And because in a particular point of the week or the month...
What was that, to bail out Andy? Sorry.
Well,
Sorry.
Yeah, okay. There's still some humour in the show, which is good. No, but the point being, because no one had the cash available to take over Her Majesty's debt, all of a sudden she's got to write the debt, or her bank has to write Coots, the debt from 100 million down to 10 million. And that's what caused the collapse. What the regulators should have done is to allow a period for liquidity to expand. And the media had a big part to play in this. We're having a global collapse. Stock markets are dropping. Bear Stearns has gone bust. Lehman Brothers is completely foxtrot up,
Osgood,
etc., etc. And you then you create a herd mentality. The reality is, if you look at the default rate amongst corporates and consumer borrowers, the default rates were lower than the recession of the late 1980s, which is one of the deepest that I can remember.
We are yeah, 87. I remember it well. That was when Chancellor Nigel Lawson, Nigella's dad, went and got rid of the dual MIRAS, mortgage interest relief at source, which meant that instead of both members, him and her, getting tax relief, because it was for couples, it was only one of them got tax relief, and that was an increase of a few £100 on your monthly outgoing, because you weren't getting it back, and people were repossessed left, right, and centre, and it created an enormous bloody great big recession. It was terrible economic management. I remember that well. What I wonder, Rodri, is that now it's going to be a lot worse. A lot worse. It's going to make 87, let me finish, look like a picnic. I really, really, really do wonder if we're going to end up having to renationalise the likes of British Airways, for example, because there's no way the government can justify throwing away taxpayers' money off the back of what happened in 2008, doing it again for enormous, great big corporations. Yes, we need to save the jobs. We need to try and save the jobs, but the only way to do it in a fair way, surely, the rail companies similarly, is to nationalise these things. I just wonder if we're going to see, ironically, a kind of a Jeremy Corbyn wet dream come materialise off the back of this.
Actually, I would like to hear Jeremy's views first before I chip in. Jeremy, please step in.
That's a cowardly way, Viscount. You're somebody else.
Okay, no, I'll step in. All right, okay, I'll give you my view.
I'm quite happy to do that. I'm quite happy to do. I think, well, the quantitative easing, you said, in the short term, perhaps it has to be done for people like me, but will the quantitative easing just be for the big companies, or will they bring it down to, they actually give it to, because this money that's been promised by the Spanish government, where's it coming from for a start? It's got to be paid back.
Got to borrow it.
Yeah.
It's going to be paid back by the kids that are going to be conceived during the quarantine over the course of the next few weeks.
Well, perhaps there's another thing that the old people are dying, so that's it's the demographic problem is being solved a bit.
Jeremy, do you know what? You're absolutely spot on. Funnily enough, it will save the nation an absolute fortune in terms of people during the unproductive part of their lives, popping off their clogs. We've all got to die of something. And I had the conversation with my mother, who's in her 80s.
She loves you.
This morning, and she said, "Oh, this is all terrible." I said, "Look, you isolate and all what have you." I said, "Mama, what do you think you're going to die of eventually? I mean, old age is not an accurate answer." Are you going to die of pneumonia, flu, cancer? You're going to be hit by the number 19 bus on, Sloane Street. I mean, what do you think you're going to go from? At the end of the day, you've got these, and they're not that periodic. If we look at SARS, we look at bird flu, we look at all the bits and that we've been threatened with. Lo and behold, this is not something out of the ordinary.
Yeah, but for me, this is the difference with this is this. I can't get out of my head that I believe, and I think the evidence shows this one is specifically man-made. It's specifically come out of a certain laboratory, and it's designed to kill old people. And that's one of the things I believe about it. That's what it's designed for. China has this problem with old age people.
Well, it does actually, because it's got an aging population. Yeah. And in actual fact, I suppose another outrageous comment is if we look at the age profile in Europe, we have an aging population where our birth rate is 1.8 per family. And unfortunately, with the immigrant population, which are mostly consisting of Muslims, they have a birth rate in excess of 4. So,
I got kids. So
sorry?
I'm good. 6.
You got 6?
Yeah, I'm trying to reverse the trend. I'm going for it.
I tell you what, sir, you got a full tank there, if you didn't mind me
Not
saying.
Not anymore, I haven't. There's nothing left in this.
You've got 6 kids, Jeremy.
I've got to say,
there's
a bloody full tank there. You sound like Milford Haven.
4 young ones here and 2 older ones in Wales.
Okay. And they've just put you into a quarantine situation with your wife. What is the problem? Barcelona football team needs new players in the junior squad or something.
It must be something.
It's a bit worrying. Blimey.
Do you know what? The best players mostly come from Wales. If we look at Richard Burton, who I was a great fan of, and in actual fact, funny enough, just coming back to Welsh roots, Richard Burton was a huge philanthropist, and he never boasted about it. He came from a family of 7 from the Rhondda Valley, and he was the one who made it big time. But he looked after all his siblings, their children, and their grandchildren. It's that community spirit, which is not born, I hate to say, of immigration. And it's not to have a go at immigration. It's community value. You got Richard Burton, who was growing up, making his riches in Los Angeles when married to Liz Taylor. He did not forget his community because, of course, his father was a coal miner in the Rhondda Valley.
Right. Okay, good. I think we went slightly off topic, but not entirely.
Yeah, we did.
Because it is, at the moment, right now, about putting together. But this is a surreal thing because on the one hand, it seems to me that this is a wonderful opportunity for the human race to pull together. Setting aside.
By the way, Olly.
Let me finish.
Olly,
let me finish. Setting aside.
Olly, Olly, I'm sorry. My daughter has just come back, having played King Duncan in the play Macbeth, the Scottish play, and that's why I just thought I'd put her on screen.
Oh.
She has her beard put on, and none of the parents were allowed.
Oh, God bless you, girl.
None of the parents were allowed to attend. None of the parents were allowed to attend.
Chilean 5 o'clock shadow, mate.
All right, darling. Okay, bye, monkey. Anyway, I just thought I'd give the opportunity to be on screen.
It is surreal, though, isn't it? Because on the one hand, I'm worried about my mum. I know that Piers is worried about his folks. Rodders is basically, I don't know. He seems to have had a very frank conversation with his mum. but the fact is that we have got this weirdness. And it's going to be, Boris, for example, has told us it's going to be horrid. We're going to lose people. There's going to be a lot of sadness along the way. And there already has been, for example, all over in Italy and in China and all sorts. And we're going to see more of that. But on the other hand, setting aside that tragedy, there also is an incredible opportunity here for assuming that this isn't some sort of a New World Order deep state Kissinger-led play to bring in forever martial law and subject us to God knows what tyranny. Assuming that this is a legitimate crisis as opposed to a man-made orchestrated crisis, then we do have the opportunity to have a much more beautiful and unified. I'm not talking about the EU. I'm talking about sovereignty, but with cooperation and what have you, but basically with a mutual understanding, culture to culture, self-respect leading to mutual respect. But we do have the opportunity, do we not, to be pulling together with our neighbours and to have a much more beautiful human life and understanding of what life's about, Jeremy. And you might end up with 12 kids.
The Blitz spirit, you mean?
Yes, absolutely. Funny enough, Jeremy, you took the words absolutely out of my mouth. The Blitz spirit. If we look at the cooperation that the Allies were able to pull together, which included our Commonwealth colleagues from India, from very far-flung places, and it was the spirit of community. It was, you know what? If we're under attack, let's all pull together, regardless of nation, culture, or creed. There we go. Jeremy, over to you.
Well, Ollie, I'm afraid my time has come. I have to go now. I'm so sorry.
You've got to go and produce more children.
I got a couple more to pop out, and
fully understand, mate.
A couple more to pop out, and I'll be happy.
Jeremy, where do I get one of those shirts?
This is an old
St. David's
shirt. I got. They don't make these anymore. This kind of collar. Oh God, this is about. I would say this is 8, 9, perhaps even 15 years old. This one.
Now you know that the thing about Brains beer, before you go, is it's got a very short shelf life because it's so lively.
I didn't know that. I know it tastes good.
It's produced in Cardiff.
Yes.
And the brewery is just around the corner from HMP Cardiff.
But it's moved now. The brewery has actually moved now. It was in the street. What was the name? Chip Street was the nickname for it because it was all chip shops and it stunk. But they moved it outside Cardiff now, I believe. But I haven't been to Cardiff for a long time. But I believe it's moved now.
Okay.
Area. It's a great place.
Great
beer as well. Great beer.
Do you know what? Yeah. No, So where are you living now? Sorry, whereabouts are you living now?
I'm in about an hour north of Barcelona.
Oh wow! So you're in Spain.
I'm in the quarantine zone. That's what we've been talking about before you got on.
Oh bloody hell! Well, I do you know what? The funny thing is, my mother is Chilean, and do you know what? One of the biggest communities in Chile, originally from Wales. And you think of Patagonia.
Yes.
And you've also got the Irish contingent. The equivalent of Park Lane in Santiago de Chile is Avenida O'Higgins. It was Bernie O'Higgins, who was the Irish mercenary, who helped sort out the Civil War to give Chile its independence. Oh my gosh, you've got the book.
I've got a book here somewhere about him. The Chilean. Oh God, where is it? Well, a Bernard Cornwell book, actually. Not Bernard Cornwell. No, not Bernard Cornwell. Anyway, I got a book here about O'Higgins. Yes, fighting against the British out there. One of the Sharp. One of the series from Sharp was with O'Higgins. You know Colonel Sharp, Captain Sharp.
Oh no, hang on. It was Admiral, because I met his great granddaughter, who in actual fact I had a bit of a interesting time with. I'm just trying to remember. I can't remember the bloody name. Yeah. It was Admiral, not Codrington. That's a boozer in London. It was Admiral something or other. Anyway, it's
Right.
probably just as well to keep it discreet. But you know what? You go to Patagonia, you go to Argentina, you go to Brazil. Um, us Welsh from Wales, in actual fact, have been the leaders in terms of resource, manufacture, engineering, leadership, warfare, you name it. And you know what? I've got the great pleasure of being related, obviously, to my cousin, Nicky Phillips, who painted Simon Weston. I hadn't met Simon Weston yet. I can't wait to do so. But you know, he's raised a lot of money. And
Simon Weston, you're talking about the Falklands War hero.
Yes. Sir Galahad,
Yes.
where he was hit by an exocet.
Got terribly burned.
And in actual fact, he's never complained or moaned. The reputation that we in Wales have, that we moan and complain, it's like, well, in actual fact, we don't. We get up and we get on with it.
Right. Well, we're going to have to do that now.
Get up and get on with it. And let me tell you before I go, Alexander Cordell, great writer. Okay? Okay, I got to go. Seriously, I really have now. That's it. I'm finished. Goodbye.
God bless you. Thank you so much. Thanks for popping in, mate.
Jeremy, it's been a great pleasure.
Anytime, Viscount, I'll be on here again to speak to you. I think I'll have a good conversation with you.
Good.
Superb.
You'll be good. And I've been to Sandhurst as well. Goodbye.
Hey, you what?
Yes. I've been to Sandhurst. CC 941. Income and Man Company. Goodbye. You be good.
God bless you, mate.
All
Thank
right,
you,
sir.
Jeremy. Have a lovely evening. Try to keep it in your pants. Right. So that was Jeremy Poole from Barcelona, who has got zero coronavirus in his town and is just bored silly and worried, actually, that he's not going to be able to earn a crust, and he isn't able at the moment to earn a crust because this thing is affecting him. And that is something that you missed, Viscount, I think. But that's the bottom line with him. That's his story. That's how he's being affected by this coronavirus. This bug is nowhere near him, but nonetheless it is affecting. Well, I say it's nowhere near him. It's about 60 kilometers down the road in Barcelona, and it's all over Barcelona. But where he is, he reckons there's none of it. But nonetheless, he's holed up at home. He's not able to go out without perhaps getting, arrested by the police or getting funny looks from the neighbours, was how he described it to me. Pushing his shopping cart around so it looks as though he's gone shopping, which is the only way you can get out when you're quarantined the way we are at the moment. But more importantly, he can't work. His kids are at home, and his wife's at home as well. And
well, actually, Ollie, you brought up a point early that has gone unanswered. Is what is the effect going to be on international and domestic business? Now, when you find that the fleets of commercial aircraft, British Airways, etc., are grounded because they can't travel to Germany, they're not traveling to America, etc. How many people do these specific industry? How many people are employed? You got the ground crew. You got the handling staff. The consequences are devastating because a business typically has enough working capital for between 3 to 6 months, 6 months if they're conservative, for operation on the basis of zero margins. If people are being quarantined for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 months, it means that these businesses run out of physical cash to pay people just to stay at home.
Yeah, that's right.
That is a major.
Right.
That is
They are basically going to have to print something in the region, it seems to me, of £100 billion. This is the British government.
You can answer that.
Let me finish. Every government around the world is going to have to do a similar thing. the British maybe is a bit more lucky than others because the economy it's not great, but it's frankly a lot better than, for example, the German economy even at the moment, or the French.
Yeah.
It could be worse, but certainly better than the average African country. I mean, Corona is just beginning to touch into South Africa, for example, at the moment. How that goes, well, I mean, all sorts of civil issues and what have you as well. But so far as the UK is concerned, just to concentrate on that question of what is going to be required, it seems to me that the British government is going to have to print something in the region of 100 billion quid just to get small to medium-sized enterprises and their employees who need still to be spending a few quid to keep the economy going as well, where they can, because they can't spend it in clothes shops, for example. They'll all be closed before you know it. And pubs and restaurants, all closed. Everything is going to be closed within 2 weeks. The whole lot quarantined. I guarantee it. It's exactly what's happened in Spain. The UK is 2 weeks behind. So they're going to need a lot of money, but that's 100 billion quid. Basically, it's just going to, the Chancellor, the Prime Minister, whatever, they're going to have to take a big loan. No?
Well, you say a big loan. I mean, we're out of the EU, so the ECB, thank God, we have nothing further to do with because it's run by the Krauts.
They've got about 11 billion of our dosh
well, but in terms of further cash,
we've got a big exposure. We've got a massive exposure if the ECB goes down. No.
The answer is and it runs.
But that's another issue. But that is going to happen too, probably.
That's a huge debate by itself. But in terms of supporting, example, the first ones who are going to be hit are the leisure industry, which includes pubs, hotels, restaurants. The airlines have already been hit naturally because they can't fly anywhere.
Shipping,
I mean, and the knock on from that
because people can't afford to buy. Actually, it's easier. What industry is not going to be severely affected? Chemists,
funny enough, you should say, Olly, it's funny. It's funny you should say that. It's funny you should say that because I'm in one of the industries which will not be severely affected, and that is cigarettes.
Yeah,
that's
right.
I'm a merchant of doom and gloom. Unfortunately, it's just and I am a smoker. I practice what I preach. There are very few businesses which, in actual fact, will not be affected. But those immediately are the high street, and it's not as though the high street was doing desperately well to start with. People staying at home, this media stuff about self-isolation, it's like, okay, that's how you do beat a pandemic. If you think about the poems and the writings of the Black Death, when they used to put crosses on people's doors and the rest of it, that's how you contain contagion. No alliteration intended, but that's it. That's how you contain contagion.
Yeah, they haven't got any choice but to do this, it seems to me. Daily Chaos, by the way, has been saying that they should have stopped flights from China 6 weeks ago, something like that. Probably longer. Before then, they should have done. But I just beggars belief to me that they've been allowing flights to come in, for example, from Italy up until about a week or 12 days ago or something. And without even screening people for the virus. It's an absolute joke. And finally now, guess what? Oh yeah, you got to try and contain this thing. I don't know. It just seems to me absolute madness. I want to take some comments, Viscount. We've only got a few minutes left. Let me take a few comments and see what people have got to say. The downliner says these comments just gone above the parapet. They print or just type money out of nothing, and they use that to purchase assets. The whole thing is theft, but made to look like a complex Ponzi scheme. Well, they pretend it isn't a Ponzi scheme, but it is a Ponzi scheme. Harold Chapman says the head of the World Bank stepped down last year, 3.5 years earlier than expected. Did he see the mess on the horizon? Oh, I have no idea, Harold. No idea, sir. Gillian R. says it has to have been because it contains HIV genomes. She's referring to the virus, which apparently does contain HIV genomes, which is why they're trying to treat it with HIV drugs, as I understand it. How would that happen naturally? I have no idea, Gillian. I'm not a chemist or anything like that at all. Not that bright. Dr. Dawson says the coronavirus is all to do with a lockdown by the US military to fulfill the sealed indictments on all kid trafficking, child abuse, on Hollywood pedo superstars, cardinals, high-up judges, police. The cult is finally getting swept. They have two options. One, deal with prison and humiliation. Two, or take their own lives. You've been reading Ben Fulford, sir, I think. You will see so many stars, being reported as COVID-19, which really means pedo. I know what Dr. Dawson is saying there. There is this theory, which our co-host Piers Garnham, along with old Rodders and me, often brings up. There is a theory that this whole thing has been manufactured as a means to lock everybody down temporarily, whilst they can then indict all of this filth, this psychopathic filth that kind of runs the place. From your Kissingers and your Blairs and your Athnars and your Clintons and all of them. All of the filth. And basically, sort of, and in Hollywood, and they've already got that Weinstein bloke or whatever, but all the pedos in Hollywood and all that. Now, I know all that sounds very, very far-fetched, and Rodders, I've got to give him a chance to bite my head off here, because I'm sure he disagrees with a lot of this. But the fact is that having researched this myself, I completely agree with you, Mr. Dr. Dawson, that there is a massive, massive problem there, which is half the reason why this kind of corruption has been allowed to go on. We can deal with this in another show. There's not time today because we're kind of out of time. But we will be dealing with these conspiracy theories, which actually are not conspiracy theories, because government MPs, for example, in the UK have admitted it on camera, on the telly, on the BBC. Tim Fortescue, for example, yeah?
Oh, yeah. That's an old one.
These depraved people have been put in positions of power and then are bribed to do the bidding of, these dodgy Brzezinskis or whatever. And then now we have this guy, this president, who reckons he wants to drain the swamp. It revolves around all of that. These depraved people that need to go to prison, and not all of them are pedos or whatever. Maybe they're just crooks. But anyway, okay. We'll deal with this another day. But it does, Rodders. It has to be said. As I talk about this stuff, and I have researched this, I stand by what I say. It does sound extraordinarily far-fetched. I don't personally think that this virus outbreak has anything to do with draining the swamp, I have to say. But
do you know what? I'm glad you say that. Now,
the swamp is still there, though. The swamp, nonetheless, is still there and needs to be drained.
The answer is yeah. But very quickly, one things we ought to discuss is the conviction, I think quite rightly, of Hashim Abedi, who is the brother of the guy who blew himself up in Manchester. He's just been convicted.
You're talking about the Manchester bombing, the Manchester arena, where 20 kids were killed or something?
22 people died, 1,000 were injured.
And that's at court at the moment. What's going on?
That's it. Right. He's been found guilty of 22 counts of murder. Conviction, sentence is being considered, but the judge has said that he's considering life without parole.
Good. I should bloody well hope so. I think he should be hung, drawn, and quartered.
Do you know what? I completely agree. I mean, if there was a case for bringing back capital punishment, I think this is one of them.
Yeah. Why should we pay? Why should we pay to lock these people up? He should be minced. Well, he should be put in a wood chipper.
If I was to say that, that would be 12 weeks for me. You can say that. I can't possibly comment.
He killed 22 kids.
He was a party to killing 22 people and injuring 1,000.
Hold on a sec. You're saying is this the killer, or is this the suicide bomber, or
no, the suicide bomber obviously blew himself up.
Yes,
it's his brother.
This is his
who
brother.
Organised.
So let's get this right then. Maybe he shouldn't be put in a wood chipper. Maybe just sliced with a salami slicer instead. This is the brother of the suicide bomber who was complicit in orchestrating this terror act. Is that right?
The answer is yes. He organised the supply of materials, which included sulfuric acid. And if you're buying sulfuric acid by the litre, it's for an obvious reason. The judge has basically said he is considering a sentence of life without parole. If you take 22 people's lives and you've injured another 1,000, in actual fact, it makes you wonder, actually, where are the battles in Britain? When we have the Luftwaffe flying over London, blowing up houses in Stepney and St Paul's, etc., etc.
St Paul's was okay. Everything around St Paul's was flattened.
Actually, you're right. You're absolutely spot on.
Carry on.
God protected the work of Sir Christopher Wren.
Yeah.
Naturally, because God is British, and it's our natural right.
Yeah. Well, he wasn't a Cockney because the East End got blown to bits. But carry on, Rodders. The point being
the enemy from within. And at what point do we act? We need to have an active government that says no, enough. If you're, what was the expression for the guys, which included Tiny Rodens of Lonhro, the fifth columnists? At what point do we recognise, beyond the bounds of political correctness, fifth columnists who do not fit in within our culture, and it's time to just draw a line and go, you know what? Foxtrot Oscar.
You know what? I'm just going to read a quick story here, which I think is to do with all of this. It's let me see if I can pull this up. Let me see if I can pull this up, folks, so that you can see. I was about to finish the show there, but I do want to show you this, people, because it is relevant. There you go. Okay. According to Political Light, Brown, paper envelope, ex-PM Git Brown let rape gangs roam free in return for Saudi oil money. Now, as any of you that are awake know, it is a fact that Gordon Brown's government, specifically his Home Secretary Jackie Smith,
and Keir Starmer, who was the director of public prosecution.
Let me finish.
Sorry.
Sent a diktat to police forces around the UK, telling them to ignore the mass rape gangs and mass rape and murder gangs that were going on. That happened to be mainly of Pakistani descent, raping and murdering English and Sikh girls. Basically in a racially motivated pincer movement, the length and breadth of the country, and how many were raped and murdered because Gordon Brown, his Home Secretary, his government, sent a diktat to all the police forces telling them to ignore what was going on. Because for the girls, It was a lifestyle choice. I paraphrase with the words lifestyle choice, but that was the message that was sent by the British government. Now, the Political Light has got a follow-up on that story today, I noticed earlier. Brown paper envelope, ex-PM Gordon Brown let rape gangs roam free in return for Saudi oil money. Former Labour boss Gordon Brown allegedly let Muslim rape gangs roam free in Britain in an alleged deal with the Saudis. Political Light can exclusively reveal. So this is according to them. I've not seen this anywhere else, this particular story. I know the backstory to it is true. That's a fact. A City of London finance source exclusively claimed to Political Light that during Gordon Brown's short tenure as abject failure as Prime Minister, he borrowed money from the Saudis, but the deal had big strings attached. He urged the dollar-rich Gulf states to prop up ailing national economies through a massive injection of capital into the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, and also asked for cash for Britain. A source connected finance in the city, told Political Light that in return for the money, the condition they insisted on was that Muslims in Britain must be free to do anything they like. In the light of his subsequent repression of reporting on rape gangs, this information might provide the explanation. It may well provide the explanation as to why Gordon Brown's government set that diktat to police forces to stand down over what was a gross mass epidemic of a crime throughout Britain. Yeah, and just as an aside, I'm not going to read the rest of this story right now because we're running out of time and what have you. And frankly, you know what? It makes me feel pretty bloody sick, and I don't really want to end the show on this. Yeah. But I will just say that it's intriguing that the Saudis, yeah, who are a weirdo bunch bloody lot, Wahhabi Salafists, what have you, not regular Muslims, but hardcore. It's intriguing. Oh, and that kill people apparently at the request of the Crown Prince. What was it? That guy in Turkey, for example, and all that.
Oh,
absolutely despicable lot. They fund 4,000 mosques in the UK and those imams. Yeah. Now that is not moderate Islam. That's not moderate Islam that they fund. It's hardcore. And I do think we have to have a debate about that, because I think decent Muslim people would not want to see this kind of thing going on any more than any decent British person. That's very, very worrying development. I take it you haven't heard of this particular story, Rodders, because it's just been fresh today.
Well, the answer is I have, in a slightly different way, in that Keir Starmer, when he was Director of Public Prosecutions under Tony Blair and then subsequently Gordon Brown, he was the one who, in actual fact, is responsible for prosecution, naturally being the Director of Public Prosecution.
And he's about to become the leader of the opposition, this bloke. Go on, sorry.
And lo and behold, the deal he did with his political governors is give me a safe seat, because my ultimate proposition is I want to be an MP, and he got a very safe seat from going from DP, Director of Public Prosecutions, and it was within his remit and his moral and fiduciary remit to prosecute people. This is what I find so disgusting about the politicization of our judiciary. Either we have laws which are obeyed, and if they're not obeyed, they're prosecuted, they're investigated, etc., or they're not. But the mixture.
That is an interesting story, though, isn't it? Because it does seem that there is one rule for the indigenous British people and another rule for Muslim people in the UK who seem to get much, much better benefits, frankly. Allowed to marry as many people as they want. When I was brought up, it was called bigamy. Which
is criminal. Ollie, if you go and get married to someone else in Las Vegas.
I don't want to get head up in the detail because we've got to finish this show. But there is a difference. Okay. There is a difference in the way that we're treated,
there is,
and it is not right. And we need to have that debate without being called racist. Because, for example, Sikh people they live very, very peaceably with indigenous British people. Yeah, everyone with the Poles, all the rest of it. They live very, very peaceably. They integrate. Whereas we seem to have a problem with not all Muslims, but with a section of them that just want to rape and murder,
and create Islam, which is against every Christian principle. When Her Majesty, hang on a sec, when they accept their ability to reside here, they seem to forget that they are subjects of Her Majesty, who happens to be the head of the Church of England. And if you want to create fox-trotting Islam, do you know what? You do not belong here. Go back to where you came from.
Islam is bad, I'm sure. But this is
No, hang on. Whoa.
No, come on. Look, hold on. Rodri, we're not going to get banned on the second coronavirus show on a subtopic, but I'm just saying I want there to be balance in this debate. But clearly there's a massive issue, and we're not allowed to debate it properly without being threatened with censorship and being banned. And it's bloody wrong, considering what at the moment there's a report that the government is redacting half of the report. Doesn't want to release it at all. A report onto what exactly has happened with these rape gangs, murder gangs, and what have you. They are trying to cover it up, and it cannot be covered up. But this is not really the main purpose of this show, but it is another aspect of the chaos that is going on in this world and the division that's being wrought between different cultures, crammed onto a little island, for example, when it is not something that is fair on any decent person, irrespective of their creed or colour or anything else.
The emphasis, Ollie, I would put is on your use of the word decent. It's decency, and decent. It doesn't matter where the hell you come from. There is basic human decency, and when people are not decent, you know what? We need to jump on top of them. And the problem that we've got through politicization is that some people have been allowed to be incredibly indecent, which runs across every nerve and vein. It's as simple as that. And what I'd suggest on the topic of Islam is, why don't we get an imam on the show?
Yeah. We should get what's his name? Tahidi. That guy's really cool, isn't he, in Australia? And all the really, really hardcore lot from Saudi or what have you can't stand this guy. But he is a traditional Muslim. He's not a hard, extremist.
Yeah.
He's
let's get a moderate Muslim. Because, as I was banging on the other day about not Al-Wadi, lovely Muslim lot, and I went to their peace symposium. And Islam is a completely different concept. It's a spiritual, religious concept rather than one of taking territory like ISIS and the Wahhabist law. And actually, when I think of Wahhabist, I always think of sushi. Funny enough, I think of wasabi.
That's wasabi, mate. And the sect is Wahhabist.
Yeah, Wahhabist. You're absolutely spot on. Yeah, sorry.
Which some people reckon was basically something drummed up by the CIA to create a division. But anyway, look, let's leave that there. Because you know what?
For the time being.
I get really hot under the collar. And that really, really annoys me because we have seen our country destroyed really through this, what Tony Blair called multiculturalism, which was a complete lie because what we have is a serious ghettos and not with decent people who want to coexist and just, work hard and be good neighbors, which is the vast majority of people from whatever culture. But there is an element which is, it's not, it's an infiltration. It's a real problem. It's a real problem. And it does get me hot.
You make two very good points. Being a
it's
good
going on
neighbor,
in the States,
it doesn't
big
matter
time
what,
as well. It's going on all over the place.
You make two good points or statements. One is being a good neighbor. It doesn't matter where you come from. If an Ethiopian child next door is in need, of course we're going to help out, and I would expect the same in return.
Yeah, damn right.
If my daughter Delphina, and do you know what? Infiltration is a very penetrative word, i.e., infiltrated by people who don't have good intent or intentions. Yeah. There's a huge difference, and our politicians, because they're sitting in their little ivory towers, determining this, have made
they're getting bungs from the Saudis by the sounds of it.
Well, let's go back to the Clintons. How the hell?
No, let's not. Let's wrap up. Rodders,
let's wrap. Mate, we'll wrap up. All right, mate.
I am pleased.
And by the way, I am going to get a haircut. My hair is getting slightly sort of shaggy.
I cut you off. Hold on a sec. There you go. There's old Rodders with his hair and his Chilean.
I am going to get it cut. And I've got this fantastic Cypriot barber, who's a huge amount of fun. And he always sets me up for. I get my hair cut only 3 times a year. Ollie, you get your hair cut probably once a year?
Yeah, pretty much. The last time I got, actually, funny. There's a story about that because one of the places it has changed. But when the quarantine was first announced, they said that there are 1 or 2 exceptions where you could go and do your whatnot. You go and get a bit of shopping. You can go to the doctors, and peculiarly, you could go to the hairdressers. You could go to the barbers, get your hair cut. And the reason they did that, I understand, subsequently, is because elderly ladies in Spain like to have their hair attended to by a hairdresser. And because looking after the elderly people or what have you, they thought, well, we'll let them go to... Anyway, they have changed that now. But in any case, I could do with a haircut. Every day, for me.
Oh, you must be kidding. Ollie, you're looking fab.
Well, that's very kind of you. But
I've got one question. Question. Are you dying?
No, not yet. But if I went to the hairdressers, if I went to my barbers, I might do. Because the last time I went there, he gave me a cold. And I had that for 5 weeks. And so I'm not going to trust him. Next time I go, I might get, corona whatnot or something or other. But yes, so we are surviving. We will get this, Rodders, almost certainly. But, I'm not really worried, personally. I'm concerned about passing it on to other people who wouldn't be able to cope with it. No?
Yeah, I completely agreed. Yeah.
Do you think, finally, last question, and we'll be back tomorrow at 5 o'clock GMT, which is 1 in Washington, D.C. PM, and 6 CET, Central European thing, or 4 a.m. if you're in Australia, Sydney. But last question today, and I hope you'll be around tomorrow, Rodders, but the last question for today, do you think that Boris has basically got this right in your estimation? Because he seems to have done a little bit of a U-turn yesterday. Seems to have got a bit more playing catch up.
Okay. He should have done a lot sooner. To be frank, he has done a U-turn in that he's now toughening up in the same way that Trump did. To be fair to Trump, because no one has realised. People have realised actually what a pandemic means, and I think Boris should have acted more speedily. But what you don't want to do is to create a sense of absolute utter panic. It's been accelerated by the press, the media. You've got nothing else to report upon other than funerals and God knows what.
Meghan and Harry.
Yeah. If they're not talking about.
So what about Trump? Do you think that he is by and large playing it right?
Yeah. And the point being is when you use
they've been very slow. They've been all of them have been very slow with stopping flights from places like China, Italy, Singapore.
Well, do you know what? Because these are very drastic measures. As we discussed earlier, the knock-on effects to the overall economy are absolutely huge. So before you start saying, oh, let's stop British Airways flying anywhere, let's stop people flying in here, EasyJet, Ryanair, etc., where in actual fact, the calculation of job losses are vast. They're not going to make that decision overly quickly.
Yeah.
And as a consequence, you've got to balance economic effect and the follow-on effect from infection effect. And the reality is, it would appear that in actual fact, the people who are at risk are those who are over 60 years of age, or those who've had their immunology diminished as a consequence of, for example, cancer, other treatments. So we can critique Boris, and frankly, if I was Boris, I would have dealt with this perhaps 3 or 4 days earlier, and it's a matter of days.
I'd have dealt with it 5 weeks ago. I personally, I would have said, no way are we having any flights coming in from, China when they've got their capital city in lockdown. That's just an opinion, but it's a very hard one. It is a hard one. Look, I'll see you tomorrow, people. Rodders, well, actually, I just want to say, Mark Conway was going to join us today as well. I don't know what happened to Mark, but God bless you, Mark. We'll try and work that out for maybe tomorrow or something like that. Rodders, I know this needs to be a bit longer, this format, doesn't it? It needs to be a wee bit longer, probably. The thing is, I'm in quarantine. You're going to be in quarantine soon. We've got bugger all to do. So we might as well do this.
Hey, hang on a sec. Hang on. If we were in Italy, we get pornography free.
Yeah, but we're not.
I don't know whether you picked that up.
Yeah, that's right. YouPorn. They get it for free. YouPorn has offered it to the whole of Italy, apparently. Yeah.
Pornhub has said you can watch us for nothing.
Yeah. There you go.
So you know what the Italians are going to be doing for the next 18 weeks until the summer.
Yeah, I imagine so. We're going to have a lot of corona babies, aren't we? We're going to have a lot of divorces, and we're going to have a lot of babies. No?
You know what? Perhaps in a different order, but divorces. Can you imagine walking on your wife or your husband, looking at their favourite sort of category of pornography?
For goodness sake. Rodders, tomorrow. Put it up. You're as bad as Jeremy. He's got 6 kids. God bless you. Tomorrow, yeah? Share this, people. Share it. Please, share it. Every day. 5 o'clock. I don't know. It's in the spiel, yeah? And there's a number in there. You can call in. For crying out loud. Look, Cat Stevens. I just want to say this comment. Good to hear again, Ollie. You know that we've been off the grid a bit. And I would like to say, God bless Alan Ashwood and all he did to waken many of us here today. Cat, well said. Oh, come on, for crying out loud. Come on. There you go. Nearly beer o'clock.
Yep.
Right, okay. That's your lot. Ciao! Hold on. What happens there? Oh, okay. Yep. Good.